Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I am going to try and get this JCB Midi, M-I-D-I backhoe started. So the situation here is this is an estate sale, and the owner of the backhoe, the last owner of the backhoe, passed away and his family is settling the estate. And so they put this on the market. I saw the Facebook ad, I responded. They got a lot of interest in it. But I was first in and I made a strong offer, especially since the battery was charged. So when I was here yesterday checking it out, it cranks over but it wouldn't start. No smoke from the stack. So took a chance, pulled the trigger, made a strong offer, and it's been accepted. So I am now the owner of it. Now I got to try and see if I can get it started, because if I can't get the hydraulics working and raise them up and get this thing moving, it's going to be kind of a nightmare for me to get this home. This machine is not a full-size backhoe. It's less than 10,000 pounds. Typically, you know, big, large, full-size backhoe is going to be 15 to 18,000 pounds, somewhere in that range. So it's got a smaller bucket. The bucket, I think, is only 6 feet wide. But it's got, like, it's kind of neat. It's got a detachable bucket, like a skid steer. So there were other accessories that went with this. And I was thinking of picking up a skid steer. And then I was like, well, I'd like to have a backhoe. And this is kind of like the best of both worlds, maybe. Maybe not. So the bucket's a little smaller. And the bucket, the backhoe assembly, is detachable. So you can actually take the backhoe off and drive it around just to use it as a loader. It's got 2 sticks instead of the 4 sticks like my old Oliver, which is, you know, nice. But enough of that. Let's concentrate on getting this thing running. So it's a 2008 is what they believe the year to be, and the other thing was they believe that it was running as recently as 2 years ago. There's a lot of lichen growth on that hydraulic cylinder for some reason, and on the hood, which really makes the hood look like garbage. But I think that might be just from being parked underneath these trees that are in this area here. And I guess maybe he just didn't make a big deal about cleaning off the hood. So I'm hoping that that's the case. So got to be a fuel issue. So there is fuel in the tank. Has a lockable cap, and it was locked, which is good. There's fuel in there now. It doesn't smell fresh as a daisy, but it doesn't smell as bad as I've smelt worse. Let's put it that way. So it's got that going for it. There's a line that comes out of the bottom of the tank, okay, and it runs up to right over here to this pre-filter. From the pre-filter, the fuel runs out, goes back down under the engine, and goes all the way over to this side to right here. This, hoping you can see it, that is a 12-volt fuel pump. It's one of those digga types. You can see the plug going to it right there. When I turn the key on, you can hear that pump running. But I know for a fact that on some of these, those will stick. They'll get sticky and gummed up. And what will happen is they'll move just enough to make noise, but move not enough to actually pump fuel. So the fuel goes through from the tank, through the pre-filter, to the pump, then gets pumped back over to this side again. This, engineering-wise, this kind of puzzles me why they did it this way, but up to this secondary filter, the main filter, okay? Then from the main filter, it comes out and runs right down to the injector pump over here. So this is the throttle linkage for the injector pump. This spring-loaded thing is a mystery. I don't know what the deal is here. This is a Perkins engine, apparently, by the looks of it. Perkins diesel. We got mouse activity here. There's poop all over the thing. There's poop on the seat. So the mice may have gotten into the electrical, chewed the wiring, and that could be causing problems. But the interesting thing is that, again, like I said, the pump makes noise when you turn the key on, so you can actually hear it. If I turn the key on, you can hear it ticking. So what I'm going to do is, right over here on top of this canister, there is a plastic bleeder. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to turn that key on and run that pump and see if we get any fuel out from here. So right there is the bleeder that I'm going to open up and see if we get any fuel out. Okay, I cracked that bleeder. Let's see if I turn the key on, get any fuel on. Should also be a change in the sound. It starts pumping fuel, might sound differently. Oh, look at that, pumping fuel now. Okay, so we're getting fuel up to that point. So I think by design that pump will only run a couple minutes and then stop. I read online that apparently, other than bleeding it there, you really don't need to do any bleeding, that this will self-bleed, theoretically. I don't know. Yeah, let's wait a minute. Yeah, I really don't feel like sitting down on those poops. Alright, so it's been running for about 5 minutes now, and that pump has never stopped. So I don't know what the deal is there. But let's see, now that I bled some air out of the system. There's a can on the exhaust, which is good. Somebody made an attempt to keep rainwater from going in there over the years. And the engine already cranks over, so I know it's not locked up. But, what these switches do. Alright. Slow, fast. I don't know what these switches down here do. This one goes slow, fast, and this one doesn't seem to do anything. I can't tell what's on or off. Alright. Let's crank it and see what happens. Let's see, throttle. There's a hand throttle here, which I'm assuming probably is for easy access during use of the backhoe. Is there a foot throttle on this thing? Oh, I wonder if this is... Yeah, this thing that's really stiff and hard to move is the foot throttle. These must be the brakes, which makes sense. Independent left and right brakes. All right, let's give it. I don't like that. Let's see if we can use this throttle instead. Does that move when I hit this? Well, that doesn't seem to do anything. That's interesting. This lever doesn't seem to do anything. Alright, we'll go with the foot throttle then. I think I'm going to open up the air cleaner before I do anything, just in case it starts and it wants to run away. So there was a guy here yesterday who was also looking at the backhoe. They kind of scheduled it so that we were both here at the same time, unfortunately. But he was messing around. He took the filter out and he said, why don't we try spraying some ether in it? So I said, well, don't spray any ether in there until I get it cranking first. So I cranked it, he sprayed some ether in, and it made that, you know, indicative, well, I can't really imitate it, but those of you who know. There are some motors that just do not like ether. My Ford 5000 is an example of that. It does not like it. The Oliver will guzzle it. It doesn't really give you a hard time about it, but some of these motors just don't like it. But now I just took the filter back out. Look at this filter. See the corrosion? That's mouse urine. So what has happened is mice have been coming up this intake. I tap on it, mouse poop falls out of it. And they went in here and they made a nest or something. I just swept out a bunch of debris that was in here. But if I start it right now, anything in here might still kind of get sucked in there. So this is a pre-filter that was inside that other filter. It doesn't look like it's in too bad a condition, so I'm going to keep the pre-filter on. And then what I'll be able to do is, if it starts to run away, on me, I'll just pull that pre-filter out and stuff a rag in there, kill it, theoretically. All right, back in the operator's seat again. Let's see if we get any smoke out of the exhaust. Nothing. All right, so I know I'm getting fuel up to the filter. So I guess I could, the fuel then goes to this banjo bolt set up right here. This is probably a check valve for the return from the from the injectors. So the other possibility is this device that's screwed into the back right here. This thing right here is a fuel shutoff solenoid. That has to get 12 volts to it, and that's what shuts the engine down, shuts off the fuel and shuts the engine off when you turn the key off. So that might not be working. Easy way to check that, well, I mean, for starters, it should click when you turn it on, but of course, I am working alone, so I have nobody up there in the operator's compartment to turn the key for me. All right, so now I've cracked open one of the injector lines right at one of the injectors, and I'm going to crank it and see if any fuel starts weeping out of there. Well, I decided to crack open that banjo bolt after all. A little bit of fuel weeped out. Let me turn on the pump and see, because it occurred to me that if I've got a really badly clogged filter, maybe that bleeder is only picking up the fuel that's coming into the canister and not showing what's coming out. Oh, that's pouring out at a good clip. Okay. All right, so I'm not getting any fuel out of any of the injector lines. I disconnected this plug that goes to the fuel shutdown solenoid and turned the key on and off, and I don't hear that click that I thought might be the fuel shutoff solenoid. So I know the fuel shutoff solenoid is clicking, but maybe it's just not actually working and doing its job. Maybe whatever it actuates in there is stuck. So I'd like to take that off, but it's really in a tough spot to get at. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get a wrench in there. With the loader in the full up position, it's probably easier, but of course, the motor's not running, we're not doing that. Well, luckily for me, this wasn't very tight. I was able to get this out with a an adjustable wrench of all things. So now, I'm just going to push on this lightly, you see. Yeah, I was afraid of that. That seems to be... That's moving freely as heck, which makes me think what's stuck is probably inside the pump, if this is even the problem. I'm going to plug this back in and turn the key on and off just to see. Yeah, so that thing's working like a charm. So it's not the fuel shutoff solenoid. I'm pretty confident that I'm dealing with a stuck rack. It seems to me when I take the fuel shutoff solenoid out, this hole on the side here, you would think, since the on position is the solenoid energized and the pin pulled back, you would think that the rack should move out towards the left there. When I put something in this hole, like a short screwdriver, and I try and push in, I can't push in at all, meaning that it's stuck in the fuel off position, is what I believe. And for the life of me, I can't figure out how I'm going to get that unstuck without taking this apart. Unfortunately, I don't really have time to research the proper way to take this apart, so I hope I'm not screwing anything up. But it's interesting. There are 1, 2, 3 nuts on studs on the top, a bolt here down in this corner, a bolt here in this corner, and a cap head screw here, which is weird. So I don't know what the deal is. I took this off, and all that happens is fuel pumps out of here when I turn the pump on, and I can't feel anything down there to like move. And on the Ford 5000, there's a plate you take off the side of the body of the injector pump, and you can see the rack in there, and you can move it back and forth with a screwdriver. I don't see anything like that on this. So now I'm trying to take this off. I can't take the injector bodies out, not injector bodies, these parts out, because there's some kind of really weird screw used here. And these injector lines are seized onto this. So when I try and turn this nut, this whole thing wants to turn, and I can't get a wrench on there to hold it. It's a common problem. They seize right here at this point where the pipe goes through this nut. So I'm just going to try and take this whole assembly out with the fuel line still attached, if that's possible. So I've loosened it some. It seemed like it was moving. So I popped this up this far with the lines attached. It's still kind of hard for me to get it all the way out, but I popped it up far enough, and then I noticed this shaft right here. I think this is the back side of the rack, and I was just able to push that in a little bit. Not easily, because it's stuck, but it moved. So if I squirt some cleaner in there, maybe, and work it back and forth, I might be able to free that up. Alright, so I couldn't free up that rack enough so that it would move freely. So what I did was I pushed it all the way that way as far as I could, towards the operator's compartment there. And what that is that should be the default position for a run. Because, as we know, when this solenoid is de-energized, it's sticking out. So that would be pushing the rack that way. So when we fire it up, we turn the key on, this pulls in, and that rack should move that direction that I manually pushed it. Whether it's pushed over far enough, I don't know. If I screw this in, I don't think the spring tension of this solenoid right now is going to be enough to push that rack back over. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to leave it out. I won't be able to shut it down other than air restriction, but them's the brakes. So I think this might be a manual shutdown lever, but I'm not positive. This lever is not hooked up to any linkage or anything, and I certainly don't want to activate it right now because I might end up undoing what I just ended up trying so hard to do. So I'm going to leave this banjo bolt undone just for the moment, and I'm going to turn on the fuel pump and bleed the system again. There's plenty of fuel coming out there already. I'm going to tighten that up. Alright, so theoretically this should start. I tightened up all of the injectors again. I'm not positive. I'm feeling very hopeful. Yeah, so I don't know if I got that or not, but alright, so it started to almost like run away, so I panicked and dropped the phone. And I think all that was wrong was that accelerator pedal linkage is seized, because I pulled back up on the pedal and it slowed down, but then I pulled up so far it died, because I don't think it's worked all of its crap out of the system yet. So let's see if I can't get it to start again. Okay, so put the pedal down a little more. Okay, so what I did was when I pulled up on the pedal, I moved the rack all the way back and probably into the stop position. So now the only way I'm going to get this to probably restart is if I take it all apart and do that all over again. Oh, I'd love it if I didn't have to open this thing up again. It's a pain in the butt getting that injector pump out. I just was cranking it and I was getting a little bit of smoke, and then the battery started dying. I threw my other battery on there, which isn't fully charged, but let's see. Yeah, nope, that ain't gonna do it. Alright, so I just took that apart, and sure enough the rack was partially open, but it wasn't stuck as bad as before, and it moved a lot more freely. So that little bit of running started to free it up, which is great. Coolant level was low. Not too thrilled about that. Took about half a gallon, maybe 3/4 of a gallon to top it off. If it was completely empty, then I'd really be concerned, because then I'd be thinking, you know, cracked block. But being that low, we could still be looking at bad cylinder head gasket, right? But let's worry about that if we have to. Let me see if I can rig up something to hold the camera so I can have it not in my hand so I don't throw it again and panic when, you know, if, right? Alright, so I took it apart again, pushed the rack over manually again, but now the rack is completely free, which puzzles me. So I don't know why it's not returning back to the run position on its own. This time when I started, I'm not going to ease off on the throttle like I did. I don't know whether or not it died last time because of some other reason or because I pulled up on the brake pedal, I mean the accelerator pedal. But alright, let's see. Now it doesn't want to start.